Hi and welcome back to my channel. Now this is the second part of my U series of reviews. On the first one we looked at the U1 in more depth. Now as I say, this I'm lucky enough to review, both this and the U1, because of Ryan over at Francis and Gay of Coventry. They're a relatively new Sinn dealer and they've allowed me to review these watches, so a big thank you to them there. If you're after a Sinn, you're in the Midlands, UK, then I'd strongly recommend going to see them, real friendly. Or if you're, say, a bit further afield but in the UK, they'll sort of deal out with you and get the watch posted off to you, no problem at all. Okay, let's have a look at this. I've been really excited to get my hands on this watch. I remember when it was released just coming on for 2 years ago, and I just thought, wow, that looks fantastic. Now, a lot of people who aren't familiar with Sinn will be saying, well, it looks exactly like this one here. And to be fair, that's the whole point of it. It is supposed to look exactly like it. But it's basically been slimmed down. And it's almost been on the photocopier and had 30% reduced, as this watch is actually 41mm and only 11mm thick. Its lug to lug width, actually, let me just check what it is 47. So that's roughly around about I think that's around about a Rolex Submariner size actually, and it has a 20mm strap versus 22mm of the U1. Now, when I brought mine, this was 10 years ago or so now, everyone wanted bigger watches. It was a very fashionable thing to have big watches. Now it seems to have come down. The last few watches I brought personally have all been 38mm, and I have a 7¼ inch wrist. So this has got me really excited. I'm very tempted on selling one of my other watches to actually buy one of these. I like it that much. Now, let me just move this hand out of the way. So it basically builds on all the strengths of the U1, as in the hands and dial, the basic case architecture, but it, as I say, it has been slimmed down. So we have still the same dial layout with the Lego hands and the matching hour markers, the matte finish on the black. It basically, you can see exactly, yeah, it's exactly the same, but the U50. Now, one thing you will notice if you look at the water rating there, it's, well, I can't believe I'm going to say this, it's only 500 meters. So versus the 1000 meters of the U1. So that is the only kind of negative you could say, is that it is only a 500-meter diver, which doesn't really affect me. So anyway, you still get the amazing contrast between the hands and dial. I like the way, and exactly the same with the U1, the way the date at the 3 o'clock position, you don't actually read the aperture for the date window that is, all you read is the 13 showing on this one, because the simple fact is it's the same black as used on the dial. Now, we do have the Sapphire Crystal. This one has definitely got AR coating on both sides. Now, this is where things change a little bit. This one here, the one criticism I do have with the U1 is the bezel. The bezel action isn't the best. It's basically where Sinn were 17 years ago. This is different. If I turn this, very, very positive. It is very positive. And let's see for back play. Minimal amount of back play. Far, far less, I would say, than the U1. The only negative I would say is very stiff. But there again, the last thing you want is a dive bezel, which is loose. So I would say this has a far superior bezel than the U1, personally. Now, this one, again, has a tag lamented bezel. standard across its range. So as I've said before, the standard strength of steel is roughly about 2,200 Vickers. This uses submarine steel, which is stronger again at 300 Vickers, and completely impervious to salt water and very highly anti-magnetic, and won't hold a magnetic charge like stainless steel can. Now, this was so the next step is taglimenting, and that is a surface treatment, a treatment they do to the steel, which makes it harder again. So this is 1,500 Vickers, making the bezel incredibly strong. Let's say scratch resistant. The bezel is far more scratch resistant. Don't get me wrong, if you scrape it across concrete, I dare say it will scratch, but it is a lot more scratch resistant. So the other advantage, well, this is the same as the U1. We have a captive bezel. Now, again, what that means is if you were to knot this bezel, it wouldn't come off. If you would have watched any videos where I modify, say, a Seiko, or if I want to remove the bezel, on most watches, you put a small pry knife there and you pop it off. And it's ever so easy. But again, that means when you are swimming, or if you're doing some kind of sport activity where you might knock the bezel, there is a chance you can knock the bezel off. Sinn get past this with the use of their retaining ring, which is mounted inside here. Basically, on the watch's case is a groove, and there is a ring. And what happens is when you screw those screws in, it presses a ring inside to mount it, to stop it. There's basically not really any chance you've got of taking this bezel off. Or other advantage, if you wish to remove a bezel, you only undo these screws and it pops off. So hardly any chance of actually damaging the watch case, full stop. Now, this model here is actually fully taglimented. This is an option Sinn gives you when you buy the watch. You can actually ask for it to be taglimented or not. It normally costs a few £100 more, but it means the whole watch case is also strengthened to stop it from hopefully scratching. Now, don't get me wrong, it's very handy on the bezel and on the clasp. This does have a taglimented clasp, but it's up to you whether or not you wish to go the whole way and have the case done. As I have two watches here, this is a very old, 12-year-old or so UX, maybe a little bit older actually, and as you can see, I haven't marked the case at all, and this one is a 9-year-old U2, and this is because it is black, it has been taglimented, and as you can see, even the clasp on this is pretty damn good. Where here is a clasp which hasn't been taglimented, but this is after 12, 13 years of ownership. Now, one thing to point out about the actual strap on this, it is available in multiple colours. Now, if I zoom out a little bit here, you can see I have a small selection of them here myself I own. So you can have white, which also would look quite good on here, or you can have the standard black. So black is maybe if you're a little less conservative. I think the red on this simply looks great. And if you order, this watch is also available, I should state, in full black. So you can have a completely black version. And if you do, then you can even have a black clasp which matches up to it. So one thing I should point out. Or if you don't want the larger clasp, and on this watch I do think maybe the clasp is a little bit big, you can have the butterfly style. Or you can say forget all that and I'll just simply have a bracelet. So you can have a bracelet as well. So there you go. The actual price difference between the bracelet and the rubber silicone strap, I should say, is only about £30 difference, I think. I would tend to always err towards the bracelet and then buy these aftermarket. But the clasps do cost a lot of money, especially if you're having a taglimented one. So just food for thought. But I say you can also get this watch in full black, or even a black bezel silver body, which is called an SDR model. So there are options out there. We do have drilled lugs on this watch. Let's zoom in there, we get a better view. Drilled lugs on there. The crown is at 4 o'clock and it is screwed in, as you can see, and it has a good amount of thread on there. As you can see, it takes quite a lot to actually pop this crown off. We do actually, the case back on this, unfortunately, has got a price sticker. I don't want to remove all that. As you can see, we have a price, because this is a tag lamented model, of £2,500. So they are expensive when you have them tag lamented. That would be cheaper if you had normal steel, but just the standard tag lamented bezel. Now, this watch, this is what I think is another improvement over the U1, as the U1 carries the Sellita SW200. This one carries the SW300 movement from Sellita. And basically, where you get 38 hours of power reserve on that, you get 42 hours of power reserve on this model. And I put this model earlier on the time grapher, and it was coming in really good. I think around about 2 to 1 second plus. So I think it's pretty damn good. Yeah, it's just a super watch. Let me put this on my wrist and get an idea how it looks. Still wearing my 556 on the John Keller strap. Let's take this off here. Also, one thing I should point out, this watch does have plenty of lume on it, and I would say it's a little bit stronger than the U1. So anyway, there we go. That's it on the wrist. Admittedly, I haven't sized this rubber strap, because once you do, it makes it awkward. You can't really go back, so it gives you an idea. Now, I have a 7 1/4 inch wrist, and I think it looks spot on. Really, really good. It would look bigger if you had the bracelet on here. Reason being is you wouldn't read from there so much. You would read the watch coming, starting from here. One thing I should point out with this, it does have the tag lamented clasp, but this has the new style of clasp. Now, Sinn's clasps of old have been solid, no argument to them at all, and they open up like that, and you have a dive link extension which comes out there, but that's it, no adjustment. Where this one, actually, if I pull down on this, he says you have adjustment in here. So you press that down, locks into position. So you do have, this is the new improved clasp from Sinn. Now, the way to distinguish these, just a simple, quick way of telling, when you see a clasp like this, let's use a cleaner one. When you see a clasp like this, you see 2 shut lines. What I mean by that is 2 grooves there and there. When you see this one, you don't see any grooves, and it's a little bit smaller than the other one. Is it actually? Oh no, it's about the same there. I take it back. So yeah, it is about the same actually. So you don't see any shut lines in there, and the way you can tell it's tag lamented is when you have it there, you see a little symbol on there. So overall, if I had to buy one of these 2 watches, I'd go this way the whole time, definitely. I think it is superb. What they've done here, I think, is absolutely stunning, and I would buy this. I'm even thinking of selling one of my watches to buy one. I like it that much. So anyway, there you go. Hope you enjoyed the review. Stay safe out there, guys. Bye.